Hello, world, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Little Bit Different podcast with your host, Cory Sterling. What's up? This is the final podcast that I'm recording in my Escape 3 Points residency, my podcast residency here, and I am just so stoked about this topic, what I'm going to share today. It's something that, holy smoke, I feel like it is the secret that anyone who is wanting to build their own online business that they just don't know about or they don't think about. So I'm really, really happy to dive into it and share about it. And really what this is about, this episode is about building your team, specifically building an online team. So in my business, how I've done it, I started an online law firm in 2016. I've been online the whole time. For a lot of that period, I've been in Canada, I've been in British Columbia, I've been in Ontario, but I've always had a remote team. And I've been through so many iterations of my Conscious Counsel team. And I currently in the present moment, I'm definitely at the most efficient and best version of my online team because look, the better it gets, the better it gets. It's always getting better. And so I've learned a lot. I have learned so much about building an online team, and I'm really excited to share a lot of this with you and share some of my tips and some of the things that I've learned, and I hope that it's helpful. So really my intention with this episode is to share information about what it's like to build an online team so that you realize the incredible power that you have at your fingertips and how easy it is. When I say it's easy, I mean it's easy. And I want to start all of this whole conversation about hiring and team building. There are two things that I want to sort of set the tone with all of this. The first is that being a manager used to be, for me, the least favorite part of my job. And the truth is, when you're just starting, you don't really have to be a manager because usually it's just yourself. So probably the first 2 years, I had an awesome assistant named Simona, who was like a paralegal at the big law firm we worked at. Then she went to move to, she had a dream of starting a farm and living in North Ontario. So she went there and she was like my first worker, but she and I were buddies and had a legal background. But the point that I'm saying is, even with Simona, I was still doing every responsibility when I started my job. So I was writing the contracts, doing the proposals, doing the follow-ups, supporting the clients, asking for Google reviews, doing the invoices, managing all the email boxes. I did every part of the job. And then it probably wasn't until year 3 that I built a team. And I was like, okay, cool. Now we can start building a team. And then I realized, just as when I was an entrepreneur and I started my business and I had no entrepreneurial experience, I gained a lot of entrepreneurial experience in those first 3 years. So that by year 3, I'm like, okay, I understand a little bit about what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Then I realized, holy smokes, I have no idea how to be a manager. I've never been a manager before in my life. I don't know anything about managing. And managing used to be something very, very, very difficult for me. And it's something that I used to really, really shy away from and not like, but I can say in the past 2 years, I've just fallen in love with it. I've fallen in love with people development. And what I'd say is that it's really about investing in people. And it's also, it's really satisfying to be a manager when you can focus most of your time on managing. It's very difficult to be a manager when you have all of these other things to do plus managing. But if you can really spend the majority of your time on managing, then it's really fun. So the first thing that I want to say, just to set the tone, is that managing is a skill. Just like sales is a skill, just like being an entrepreneur is a skill. Everything that I've done in my business, I've learned. I don't believe, I have an ability to speak. I'm a good orator, I believe, and I'm very, very passionate about what I do, and I'm creative, but none of that helps you run a business, and none of that helps you be a manager for your team. But what I can say is, now that I've come out the other side, and now I'm in year, I always forget this, I'm in year 7 or I'm in year 8 of Conscious Counsel. Now I'm really thriving as a manager, and I feel like I have a really great relationship with my team, and I'm also a responsible manager. And I will take this moment to also just and probably no one who's worked for me, in the first half of my career is listening, but I will just apologize to them for, probably not being a really great manager, like not really understanding what was required. So the first point that I want to say about building a team is that being a manager is a skill, and it's a learned skill, and it's a really important skill, and it's a skill that you always need to stay on top of. But it's super fulfilling, and I've come to love it. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to say, and this is really important, is like probably the first half of Conscious Counsel, everyone who I worked with was like a friend. The relationship was that we were friends. And I was like, oh, cool. Like I was the really cool boss friend, and like, wow, so likable and so relatable and all these sorts of things. And as the business developed and as we built systems and processes are everything for a business in the sense of being able to improve and grow and increase your workload and be more efficient, what I realized is like there's a point where you also need to be a boss, and that the relationship is we're not really buddies, even though it's, and I loved it, and I'll speak about it in a moment, but just the importance of what I'd say to anyone who's building a team of maintaining professional integrity, which is that if you are the boss and if you're hiring the team, you have a responsibility to assert your authority in a respectful and polite way, and also create the corporate culture of the business. And that's on you. It's not, your team members are not going to be the ones who really do that. Everyone's going to look to you for what that looks like and how it operates. And I wouldn't look with everything in life and with everything in business, I wouldn't have changed anything. And I feel very, very grateful that I've worked with a phenomenal amount of people, and I was with the right people at the right time every single time. And I feel like they would say the same about Conscious Counsel. And, when they moved on from Conscious Counsel, they went on to do something different or something better, or the next step in their career. But I've just really been, for the most part, it's only been really, really phenomenal and wonderful people. And all of these lessons that I'm sharing and things that I've learned about building a team in 2024 is I've had to go through difficult moments to get here, right? As an owner of a small business, as an owner of an online business, you have to make mistakes to learn how to be better. It's inevitable. If you're not making mistakes, you're not really pushing yourself enough. Obviously, I'm not talking about egregious mistakes or, being rude or treating people poorly or anything like that. But what I will say is that like all of it is part of a bigger process, and everything I've been through and all the challenges I've had have helped me have the information to be able to record this podcast and share all of this information with you. So a couple of like sort of general starting points about building a team before I really get into the juice of like building an online team in 2024. And like, holy smokes, you should be so excited if you're looking to build an online team in 2024. Okay, so the first thing is, and this is like, I think anyone who has a business or is hiring will tell you the following things. So like these things aren't different, what I'm about to tell you, but they are super important and they actually are required. So you need to define your mission and your values, and the mission needs to be about something bigger than yourself. This is absolutely imperative. You need to, at your business, whatever level it is, whatever industry you're working in, whatever it is that you're doing, you have to be very, very clear to say to people like, hey, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. So, for example, with Conscious Counsel, it's transforming the way heart-leading entrepreneurs interact and work with the law. Yeah, transforming the way legal services are provided to heart-leading entrepreneurs. I actually think that the second one is like, I recently shortened it. So, transforming the way heart-leading entrepreneur, oh my God. I don't have it in front of me, but I think you can get the gist, right? So what's really easy for me is we have monthly meetings, and at each monthly meeting, I'll go through a chart which has our mission and our values and all these sorts of things. Everyone knows what we're up to. We're trying to simplify and make the legal process simpler and easier for heart-leading entrepreneurs who work in health and wellness, full stop. That's what we do. So this isn't about Cory. This isn't about Michael, this isn't about Elena, this isn't about Sabine, it's not about Tracy, it's not about any of the individuals for the organization, but it's about something bigger, We're making a stand. We're taking a stand to improve the way that heart-leading health and wellness entrepreneurs work and interact with the law. Because I've seen, I've worked with over 1,000 people. I've just seen how the law can bring people down and get in their way and frustrate them and annoy them and be a block for them. So it's like, cool. This is in the puzzle of the world and how the world's going to be a better place. Conscious Counsel and our mission is a very, very small piece, but it's something bigger than all of us. It's not like our mission is to sell 100 homes, right? And there's a lot of value in doing that, but I'm just saying from my perspective that the mission has to be something very, very big, and it always has to be bigger than yourself. Secondly, the values of your company or your organization. Off the top of my head, I can think about ours, which are love, respect, integrity, 5-star client service, fun. I'll just leave those because I know that it's those 5, and I think we only have 7, so that's 5 of 7. But the reason why this is so important is because it lets ownership is such a big one. Ownership, fun, integrity, 5-star service, love, respect. And the reason why those are important is that if anyone is ever acting out of line or not in alignment with those values, it's very easy to course correct. Like, hey, this issue came up, has everyone been acting with their values in this particular part? And it's also just so important as well that, and I'll talk about hiring in a moment and sort of my hiring philosophy and how I approach it. But when you're hiring, you have to tell people like, this is what we're about, like straight up. And I know that balance is one of our values as well. And balance in the sense that like, cool, all of us open our computer, we have our work lives when we're working, and we close our computers. Like I never, ever, ever send a message to anyone on my team that's not on Slack, that's outside of working hours, nothing. Like, cool, you have a life and that's awesome, and I have a life and that's awesome. And when we're both online and we're both responsible for our jobs, that's what we're doing. But the moment that the laptop shuts, it's done, it's finished, and that's by design. But it's really important to let people know, because if you're hiring someone and they have different expectations, or they think something differently, or they don't understand, that's going to be a problem down the line. So mission and values are absolutely imperative. The next thing I want to add, this is different, and this is something that, I don't know how many people will say this. Maybe it's one of those concepts that everyone talks about, and I don't know, just because I'm ignorant and not dialed in. But I think I know for certain I've always had success finding people who specifically want to work for you. And I'm very, very, very lucky that for the most part, most of the positions that I have are people who reached out to me, who wanted to work with me, who inquired about working for my company, and just saw what we were about and what we were doing and wanted to get involved and wanted to be a part of it. And it's such a flip. It's so different from the traditional, like, we are a company and we are hiring, and then the applicant's like, okay, well, I need money and I need a job, so I'm going to apply here. Right? That makes sense. That's what happens every time. But I can say, as a business owner, when you have a strong mission and you're up to big things and you're doing things in a really positive way, people will find you. The same way that your clients find you, people who want to work with you will find you. And it's been so clear to me in all of the people who, and I'd love to know the average amount of time that workers have stayed with me, but I think I'm certain the average is over 2 years. Everyone who's been with me has stayed with me for at least 2 years. And I think that's because so much of it started of them being drawn to the business, them wanting to work with, them loving our mission, loving what we're doing, making law fun, as an example. Like, people just reach out and they're like, cool, this is what I want to do. I used to have a job in law, but I hated it, or it was stressful, or I got yelled at, or I had crazy hours, or whatever it was. Are you looking to grow your team? Are you looking to expand? And I've had so many cool conversations over the years, not just with lawyers, but other professionals in different industries, about, them reaching out. And it's so nice and kind to hear from them. But when people want to work with you and they're choosing you and they're coming up to you, then the chances for success are so much higher. Because then it's not like, oh, this is a job interview and this is a job and this is what you get paid. That the people who are coming to you are buying into what you're about, and often will be sacrificing some things in order to work with you because they believe in what you're doing. So that's really, really important. Now, this next piece is also my personal approach to hiring and building a team, and all of these, like, this episode is not about like, this is how you use Fiverr or this is how you use Upwork or anything like that, but more what I've learned about hiring and how I go about hiring my team. And this is what I call the next piece, which is so important, is what I call my Moneyball approach. So Moneyball was a book. I forget the author. I never read it. And then it was a film with Jonah Hill and with Brad Pitt. And it's about a general manager in baseball who does things differently, where the types of stats that he's looking for with his players, I believe, is on base percentage. So the only metric that he looks at, he's not looking at home runs, he's not looking at runs batted in, but he's looking at on base percentage. And he's like, okay, whoever gets on base the most, then will have the best chance of scoring the most runs and winning. And everyone, looked at the approach and was like, no way, it'll never work. It's too non-traditional. It's too different. But obviously it works, and now it's a whole trend, and now analytics and blah, blah, blah. For me, the way that I've taken this and how this affects my hiring is that I have never, ever once pursued a shiny hire. Like, I've never gone for the person with the perfect resume, who has the perfect application, who's super qualified and all those sorts of things. I've never done that. And a lot of the reasons why, and I actually did it, I sort of did it one time, and I'll talk about that experience in a moment, but that's not the culture that I have at Conscious Counsel. At Conscious Counsel, I really feel the culture we have is developing talent and helping people reach their potential. And I think that a lot of the times, and look, who knows, maybe my business could have grown in a completely different way if I had done this. But I've never hired a person for the role other than lawyer. Like, obviously lawyer, you need to be in good standing in the jurisdiction where you are, and like, you need to be a real person and be relatable and all these sorts of things. But for any other role, I've never gone for like the polished, shiny candidate. The six-figure shiny, polished candidate. And the reason why I haven't done that is because I really, really, really believe in developing talent. And I really, really believe that there are so many incredibly talented workers in the world who, maybe didn't have the opportunity to go to a fancy university and have these corporate jobs and do all of these different things. But like, A, they're hardworking, B, they've got the right attitude, and C, they're driven. They're really, really time and time and time and time again. You can really build a team if you look for people who are driven, people who are hardworking, people who are in the right role, in the sense that what you're asking them to do, they're capable of doing and within their capabilities, and they like doing it and they want to do it, and they embody, the values of the team. You can help develop absolute all-stars from that. And the two stories I'll share as follows. One was, I remember, I think it was 2020 or 2021. And, this was like, Conscious Counsel was growing and was doing well. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm finally ready for a market, like a really, really good marketing person. Because I thought, okay, a really, really good marketing person is what the company needs, and this is how we're going to do it. And there was a candidate who was, on paper, everything. Six-figure salary. I was like, okay, if this is how I'm going to pay her, but this is the value that'll be returned, and blah, blah, blah. But it was like, this person had the attitude, had a little bit of ego, was very confident in their abilities and felt that they knew everything. And it lasted 1 month. It lasted 1 month where it was just so clear that this person was not a fit with the rest of the team, and the way they did their work was different. And there was just a sense of entitlement where it's like, oh, I know everything that I'm doing, and I've worked at these big companies before, and this is how it works, and all that sort of stuff. And it was just, for me, it was like, I was like, cool, like, I'm not, that's the last time that I'm doing that. And who knows, maybe in the future I will do it, and if it makes sense. But the more that I go in business, the learn that I can develop and build talent. And then the next story that I have is a girl who worked with me for more than 2 years. Her name is Vic. She's awesome. Vic was my first assistant. I never really had an assistant before Vic. But what was so cool about Vic, we found her on Upwork Or no, I think we sent out an email to our mailing list and we said, hey, we have a job that we're looking for, like some sort of VA position. If you know anyone who's interested, get them to send in a video and talk about these things. She sent in a video. We had an interview. It was like, cool, let's start with these tasks. So at first they were super, super basic administrative tasks, but she just killed it. And like all of her behavior illustrated the values that we had and everything that we were looking for. And I was like, oh my God, like this person's amazing. And then like Vic went from that, like I think I ended up promoting Vic like 5 or 6 times just to like different roles because it's amazing. Here's this really, really intelligent, hardworking person who again, doesn't have the corporate background, but in working with them and giving them a little bit and letting them show me what they're able to do, I saw how much potential there is. And what's amazing, even more, and even in the present day, Vic, when Vic got promoted, she hired someone under her, whose name is Elena. And Elena is my right hand and like absolutely amazing. And the exact same thing, like Elena had when she started, it was very simple, administrative, basic tasks, but like she always got everything done on time. She always took initiative. She always owned her tasks. And then like she just consistently was making life easier and easier for me and better for the business. And it's like, it's incredible because you would look if one, I don't look at resumes. Like even my last hire, I hired an awesome lawyer. He went to grad school in Columbia, and after becoming a lawyer, did a master's in sport management. I also had done a master's in sport management. Like that's all I know. I can't tell you what law school he went to. I can't tell you what his grades were. Can't tell you any of those sorts of things. But he's just awesome. So again, Elena, if I were to be like, okay, well, what was her resume and how much experience does she have working at law and this, and this, I never would have hired her. But I've hired her, I gave her space, I gave her small tasks and the opportunity to grow, and I see what she's responsible for, and she's also been promoted 3 or 4 times. So that's my approach. That's really a really big thing for me, where I don't think you need to hire people for the job you have. I think that you need to understand what needs to be done on your team, and then just start working with different people who are hardworking, have the right attitude, and really demonstrate potential, right? So the next point I had on my list, but I've already spoken about, so I'll combine it into one, is just attitude and potential. That's really it. When you see someone who has an attitude, who wants more responsibility, who takes ownership, who takes initiative, who you can rely on, who you can trust, and they have this attitude that they really live the values of your company, plus they show the potential for more, you've got it. You've got it. You don't need to look any further. And I think it's the old way is a very fixed mind, like, okay, I need this, so I'm going to hire a person who does this. And for me in 2024, what it's about is like, okay, these are the things that my business needs done. Who can I bring on to help? Who has, who's good at organizing things? Who's good at building systems? Who's creative? Like for me, I use more words like that, and I look at things in that way instead of being like, okay, I need a legal assistant, right? Like, no, I need someone who can organize the workflow for the business and make sure that the lawyers are doing the appropriate things and sending things off and following up and implementing our system. So it's just, I have had so much success up till today with amazing people and really developing and fostering and building talent. And it's also like, that's the fulfilling part about being a manager. When you're able to meet with someone and, it's sort of like they're growing wings right in front of your eyes. Like the things that Elena and Sabine, who's also on our team, who's amazing, when you get to see really, really intelligent, hardworking people who maybe didn't have the same opportunities as, someone who grew up in California and went to Cal Berkeley and whatever, and nothing against any of those people, but it's a global workforce, and it's so fulfilling to me to help see people reach their potential and just to see how they grow. So I love it. That's really where I think the change has been for me. And I sort of talked at the start about how I've changed my outlook on being a manager. And I think that's because before I used to hire for the role, and now I'm really hiring for the potential. And that lights me up. Another point that I think is really important in terms of the hiring process, and next thing I'm going to talk about geography and boundaries, but the hiring process, something that's really, really important that I found whenever I hire someone is like, you have to paint the most realistic version of what the job is going to be like on a day-to-day basis. So before I hire anyone on my team, I'll say to them like, I'll do a little bit of the spiel that I gave you guys, where I was like, look, when the computer's open, we're working. When the computer's done, like, don't reach out to me. I'm not reaching out to you. Clients won't reach out to you. Like, we have this very, very fine line between us. And it's just, I find it so helpful when I'm hiring someone to be like, look, this is what's going to happen. We're never going to meet in person. That's usually the first thing that I say. I'll be like, you and I will never, ever meet in person. Tracy's worked with me 2.5 years. I've never met her. Sabine's worked with me almost 3 years. I've never met her. That's the first thing I'll say, because I'm like, look, like if you're looking for a friend or you're looking for a buddy, that's not who I am. Unfortunately, we're not going to be hanging out. You have your life, you have your skill set, you have the work, you have the things you want to accomplish. And, Conscious Counsel can be used as a platform to help you do that. And obviously remuneration for the excellent work that you're doing. But like, we're never going to meet in person. And it's so, I'll just share a story. This takes me back so far. When I started Conscious Counsel, the first lawyer that I hired had expectations that like we were going to have an office and that we were going to, be in the office together and spend all this time together. And ever since then, I'm just like, the first thing I'll say to anyone in an interview is like, we will never meet in person, with love. But I think also just saying like, hey, like, okay, you and I will have a one-on-one weekly call for 15 minutes. We have a weekly team call that's 30 minutes. We have once a month, we have a team call that's an hour. Once a quarter, we'll have an hour-long call. And like, other than that, you're chilling on Slack. Like, sometimes we call each other, sometimes things come up. But just so you understand, like, it's email, Slack, Loom. Those are the ways that we communicate with each other. So if you're the type of person who needs activities and needs to do all of this and all those sorts of things, like, we're an online business. We don't do that. If that's what you need, and that's like, part of what's fulfilling to you, then this is not the right place. And I just find that to be so important. Another point on that as well is just like, whenever I hire anyone, just as a note, everyone goes on a trial period. I'll put everyone on a 30-minute trial period, a 30-day trial period where it's like, hey, show me what you got. And I can tell all of you who are listening, what I'm looking for in that time is, do they take initiative? Do they take ownership? Do they have the skills? Do they love what they're doing? Do other people on the team like working with them? Do they understand customer service and how to treat clients properly? That's really what it's about. The first 30 days, like I said, I feel that if you put someone if you see someone's ability and potential and you understand what the needs for the organization are, if those two things meet and match, perfect. The next question is, do they own it? Are they responsible enough to do it? Do other people like working with them? Are they polite? Are they loving? Are they kind? And ultimately, do they bring it over the finish line? And if any of those things are missing in the first 30 days, I've just learned, like, sorry, awesome, this, it's so nice to try, but this isn't the right thing. It's not the right thing for us. So a trial period is always super, super helpful. And just in that trial period, you have to acknowledge the great things that they're doing, and you have to give them course corrections. So, a recent hire, the positive acknowledgement, I was like, hey, you're doing a really, really awesome job of finishing the tasks and doing this. I need you to be more vocal. I need you to speak up a little bit more. And, we're looking for you to have a leadership role on the team. So, and then, the next meeting, boom, it's there. And it's in some ways that you sometimes you just have to tell people, even though it's very, very obvious to you. The next thing that, and this is really the online piece and the crux of it, and I'll just share a really quick story. And what I'm about to tell you is that there are so many intelligent people all over the world who are available through Fiverr, who are available through Upwork. LinkedIn, I've had zero success. I'm different, right? I'm not your standard business owner. I don't do things in a traditional way. But for me, Upwork and Fiverr is where I've been able to find almost all of my team members. And this is the story. When I was in Brazil, a buddy of mine is like the manager of one of the kite schools. He's 29. He just became a father. He's super cool. He's my buddy. And he is so intelligent and so hardworking. And like his work ethic compared to everyone around him in that environment is phenomenal. Like no one is even remotely close to, you know, the same attention to detail and all these sorts of things. And he and I, we went for a trip and we were in the car. And you know what, being in Ceará and in Brazil, and with the work that he's doing and the role that he's in, he does not earn a lot of money. And I was like, hey man, just so you know, like if you wanted to earn more money, you would be so valuable to another organization online. Like create an Upwork profile, do a couple of jobs at $8 an hour, get 5-star reviews, get great reviews. From $8, you can go to 15. And I was like, I was ready to hire him. And I wanted to actually. And I remember saying like, okay, we had this whole conversation. I'm explaining. I'm like, dude, why are you working within the marketplace of where you're located? Like you love computers, you love technology, you love being online. Go put your skills to the world. Like anyone in the world can hire you with the skills that you have and pay you much more than what you're earning here. And I will also say that he wanted to earn more money. It's not like I'm this Westerner who's like, you got to earn more money. You know, we're having a very candid conversation. He's a new father. He wants to support his family, and he feels restricted by the geographic limitations of where he's working. And I remember just thinking to myself, man, like you are so smart, and like any company would be so lucky to have you. And I just also want to share that another thing that I've noticed when I've been traveling through Africa is like I have met so many Uber drivers who are just like brilliant. They're so smart. They have so many technical abilities. And like I'm now doubling down on my philosophy of, you know, looking for workers in different parts of the world where, you know, you pay them $8 an hour to be a contractor online. Maybe to you, you're like, oh, $8 is so cheap. I can tell you with certainty. Remember, I was talking about Zambia and my friends who earn $50 a month working 12 hours, mostly 7 days a week, right? So $8 an hour to these people makes a very, very big difference in their life. They're so smart, they're so intelligent, they're so hardworking, they're so driven that really like the online hiring piece of just where I want to shift everyone's mind, if you're open to it and if it makes sense to you, is like look around the world for who you want to hire. It's a completely different landscape now than it's ever been before. And I've enjoyed the fruits of that. Also, you know, you guys know me now. I love traveling. I love different cultures. There's someone who's on our team who's Nigerian. Like I found out her local language and I always write to her in Nigerian. Like we talk about Nigerian, like, cool, that lights me up. Not everyone has to, you don't need to have those relationships with the people you work with. But it boggles my mind that this such an intelligent, hardworking, smart guy is like, oh, you know, I'm just going to, you know, well, this is the job in my town, so I have to take this job. I was like, dude, there is so much out there. So the last thing I want to say when I wrap up, before I do a summary, is just red flags to watch out for. And these are some important things. So the red flags that I have are blame, finger pointing, complaining, and being out of integrity. Definition of integrity here is saying that you're going to do something and not doing it, right? So out of integrity is, oh, I told you were going to have this by Friday, Cory. You don't have this. And for me, all of those things are red flags. Like if someone blames someone else, if someone points a finger at someone else, if someone complains about anything, like it comes from the top down. I don't complain. A lot of the times in business, frustrating things happen and you don't get what you want. And sometimes clients can be challenging or technology can be challenging or whatever it is. My job as the business owner, no matter what happens, is I stand up and I say, I'm responsible. You know, ultimately, you know, this is my team and I lead you guys and I take responsibility for this and it's on me to fix it, even if I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. And when you have that element of responsibility through the organization, everybody buys in. But what I mean to say is it's like all of these red flags for me, blame, finger pointing, complaining, being out of integrity, they don't happen thankfully, they haven't happened for a long time for me with Conscious Counsel because I just wouldn't tolerate it. Like sometimes people will say they're going to deliver something on time and don't do it, very rarely, but only like in the first 2 months of working together. And then I'll just be really clear. I'll hop on a Zoom with them. I'm like, hey, you know, I really, really love your work. These are some of the things you're great at. Just so you know, you told me that you were going to get me this on this date and you ended up giving it to me on another date. Like, was the deadline unreasonable? Do you have too much on your plate? Just to be very, very clear, the expectation is that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And if I'm out of integrity with you, you call me out on it. If I said that I'm going to get you something on time and I didn't, it starts with me. And yeah, and those red flags are just super, super important. So in summary, this is a lot of information. It's a lot of different experiences that I'm handpicking and different tips and tricks and things that I've learned. But ultimately, growing a team has become like my biggest passion as part of my business, which I really, really love. In 2024, you can hire anyone from anywhere to do anything. And I'll run through the couple of points as a summary of what I spoke about. You have to define your mission and your values, and it needs to be something bigger than yourself. You need to find it as best as possible, find people who specifically want to work for you. Remember, they're going to want to work for you because of your mission, because of your values, because of what you're up to. I have my own personal Moneyball strategy, which is hire for potential and for attitude, and in alignment with organizational values and needs. But it's really attitude and potential is where it's at. There are so many smart people all over the internet who can do such great job and such great work for you that it's the way. It's the way for me, and this is what I'm sharing about. It's obviously a different way. When you're hiring people, you want to paint an accurate picture on a day-to-day basis of what it looks like working together, and just be super blunt, like, hey, like, we are never going to hang out in person. And if your expectations are different, then this is not the right role for you. Having a trial period is always really, really beneficial. Notice how they respond to feedback. And, if you encourage them, do you see more of it? If you give them feedback on something, do they improve it? If they don't improve the feedback the first couple times you say it, you either need to continue working with them, the expectation that that'll never change, or you change them out of the role. And then some of the red flags that I spoke about are blame, finger pointing, complaining, and being out of integrity. And those are the things that you want to watch out for. And yeah, and I'll say that's it. I'm gonna take a moment to catch my breath, but I really hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that it resonates and that it's helpful. And there are so many. Please look online to hire amazing people. Look at their attitude. Look at their potential. All of the people who I've put in a role that have completely skyrocketed and just maximized their potential and done things that probably I never thought they would do and they never thought they would do. All of that came from an opportunity, from a chance to show me what they can do. So I hope that this is helpful. I hope that you're enjoying building your business and growing your business and having team members to your team. And this is definitely a different approach in building your team. And as always, my recommendation is for you to stay different. Peace.